Hello everyone, welcome to the first Rustic Reviewer unboxing. And this package is something that I've wanted to get for a while, but either just didn't have the money to do or didn't want to get at the time. But I finally did get around to it. So today we will be unboxing the Beatles in Mono box set. I've preemptively removed the labels from the package because it's bad enough that you people know my first name. So, box. And here we have the box set, which does not appear to have been damaged in transit. It just kind of has that normal condensation-y kind of stuff that you see with stuff that's been wrapped in plastic and moved through the heat. It is really hot right now. You all aren't going to see my face, but if you could see my face, I'm drenched in sweat right now because it is really hot outside right now. So you have this little thing that just tells you all of what's in there, and I actually, although I'll go deeper into detail when I actually take the CDs out and look at them, I did not realize that this set included the original 65 stereo mixes for Help and Rubber Soul. I did not realize when I bought this box set. I actually found out like a day or two later. This took quite a little while to get here. I ordered this, I think, like 3 weeks ago. But I had no idea that I was listening to a remix all those years when I listened to Help and Rubber Soul. I'm going to be so much happier when it gets cold enough to actually shut that window, because people drive past here all the time and it is annoying when you're trying to make a video. But no, I had no idea for all those years that I was listening to remixes on Help and Rubber Soul. I also, for a long time, did not realize that the stereo mixes for a lot of the Beatles albums are just inferior to the mono mixes. But recently, in the last couple of years, I've become a real convert to mono mixes when it comes to 60s bands. The Kinks like deluxe edition set that I have a bunch of. I think I have kind of Kinks through Arthur with those little deluxe editions that have the mono and the stereo, and those converted me in a big way because the mono mixes sound way better for all those Kinks albums. So here we have the inside thing and this booklet, and with these notes on the production and whatnot. I do wish that they would release these as standalone, but I understand why they don't. You know, it's interesting. As I was talking about this with a friend of mine on Facebook, who is also a big devotee of 60s rock. I have a real soft spot for earlier 60s rock, which hasn't really necessarily been displayed on the channel because I haven't really gotten the opportunity to talk about many of those albums. But we were talking about how it is funny how when it comes to like releasing stuff in mono, it's like these very second-tier bands that have had this long shot on the Beatles and the Stones, it's like the Kinks and the Hollies and whatnot, and the bands you would never think would do that. So here you have the first album, Please Please Me. You have the packaged in little mini LPs that have those weird fold things, just like the original vinyl ones apparently did. I wouldn't know. I don't play the vinyl game, and I certainly don't play the Beatles vinyl game particularly much. I mean, I keep promising when I do my collection videos, I'm like, I'll show you my vinyl collection. I never do. So, let's get this out of here. Very nice. These little inserty things, and then the CD itself. I have seen this. I did about 2 years ago. Somebody had obviously sold their version of this box set, and they had some of the music stores I go to will, like, I don't know how common a practice this is. They'll almost like part out box sets and sell them separately. And I almost bought this album separately from all the rest. And I saw it in the store. Almost bought it about 2 years ago. I didn't. However, if it had been this album separate from the box set, I might well have bought it, because this is one of my all-time favorite Beatles albums. A lot of people do not give the early Beatles the kind of the love that they deserve, which, I mean, is a funny thing to say when a band that's is rated as highly as the Beatles are. But it feels like a lot of people just kind of write off the early Beatles as, oh, they're just silly pop music, but they were so much more than that. Now, as I understand, it's basically these two, a couple we're going to get to later, and Sgt. Pepper that you just really, really need in mono, because the stereo mixes are not so great. These two in particular, the stereo mixes for are not good at all. You know, it's that awful kind of like fake stereo where all the instruments are in one ear, or in one speaker rather, and all of the vocals are in the other, and they have this reverb that's put on there to make it sound better, and it just does not sound good. Does not sound good at all. So next up we have maybe my second favorite Beatles album, the Hard Day's Night. This album is fantastic. Really, really underrated. No, it's not underrated, of course. It's underrated as much as an early Beatles album can be underrated, I should say, because it's that weird situation where it's like, yeah, people adore these albums, but by the same token, I feel like they never quite get the credit that they're due, because people, as I said, just write them off as silly pop music. And I think a part of that is because most of the people who listen to the whole Beatles discography don't necessarily go and listen to the entire to all of the 60s beat and pop bands. And I swear, if people would go and listen to early 60s music that wasn't the Beatles, they would have a completely different appreciation for the Beatles, because, God, they were leagues ahead of everybody else in that time. And that's interesting. I suppose that's how the vinyl must have been. I had no idea that's how that was. Interesting. And this is the album that everybody says is the weakest, but seems to have had a bit of a reevaluation in recent years. Like, and I was just talking about this one with a friend, like, this one is so... It's all over the place. Like, a part of it is, like, leagues ahead of Hard Day's Night, but then again, like, a part of it is, like, way behind A Hard Day's Night, because you have all that country and western stuff, or type stuff, and then you have with Mr. Moonlight what is probably the worst Beatles song ever recorded. I had no idea the back cover was like that. Interesting. Now we're getting into the ones that have these the stereo mix, new stereo mixes, or not new stereo mixes, the original 65 stereo mixes. This is why I don't. This is why I do not do many unedited videos, because boy, I am all over the place with them. By this point, this is just like this. This isn't a gatefold, so I'm just gonna leave it be as it is. Gonna. Okay, so we get to the album that, you know, I think most people considered the first great Beatles album. Certainly most of, like, your sort of, like, pompous rockist. Let me say that again. So now we get to the album that the sort of, like, pompous rockist reading of the Beatles discography says is the first great Beatles album. I don't buy into that. I think they were great from day one. But it is a step up. Really cool album. I'll be fascinated both to listen to the mono mix and to listen to the original 65 stereo mix, because they say that these two albums in particular were really poorly served by the kind of stereo that they had when they were making these albums. And this one I'm particularly excited for because as you probably know if you've ever been around when I talk about the Beatles, this is my all-time favorite Beatles album ever. This is the very first Beatles album I ever bought many years ago, and I fell in love with the band the first time I listened to it, and I have loved them ever since. So, really excited for listening to Revolver in mono. And now, another big one, because apparently the stereo mix is completely different. Now let's see if the disc is actually substantially any different. Actually, no, still Parlophone. I'm excited for this and for Magical Mystery Tour because you wouldn't think that these psychedelic albums would sound better in mono, but surprisingly many of them do, because like I recently wound up with that the 2 CD version of, somebody's texting me. Oh yes, of Piper at the Gates of Dawn from 2007. Ooh, neat. I had no idea. Oh, wow, was the LP like that? Huh. Cool. And it's the Capitol label, because this is the American album. But I got the 2007 re-release of the Piper at the Gates of Dawn, which has the mono and the stereo, and the mono is way better. Like it sounds way better. So if you're a Pink Floyd fan, be on the lookout for that. And then you have the White Album, which I had no idea this came out in mono. None whatsoever. In fact, when it was one of those things when I looked at this box set and it was like the White Album, I was like, what? I had no clue, none whatsoever, that they had made a mono mix of this. This I'll be especially interested to, because from my experience in listening to stereo and mono from the 60s, this is right about the time that the stereo mixes started getting really good and like substantially better, and mono starts to become, you know, maybe you like it, maybe you don't. Like with Arthur and the Village Green Preservation Society, I listened to the stereo versions of both of those albums just to throw the Kinks into this. And this is really cool. The Mono Masters. I had no idea that they made... I had no idea that they made mono mixes of songs that late. I wonder if those are all fold downs, because they have... the stuff from the Yellow Submarine movie, and then they have the singles from, a lot of the singles, not Let It Be, but a bunch of the singles from 69 and 1970. So I wonder if those are fold downs. But yeah. That is the Beatles in mono box set. I am going to have a lot of fun listening to this. I'm going to put it on the computer once I've turned this camera off. This has been the first unboxing, and I wish you all a very happy day and best of luck in whatever. I always feel so awkward ending these videos, and I always wind up being either way too formal or just being awkward, like right now. So bye, guys.